Okay, then fine. If art does not make us better, then what on earth is it for? This was the famous line which was given by the great American writer Alice Walker. A very good morning to all the people in the United States of America, a very good afternoon and a very good evening to the other parts of the world. And for my Indian brothers and sisters, a very good night to you all. I, Abhilash Kaushik, the General Secretary of All India Forum for English Students, Scholars and Trainers, AIFEST, extend my heartiest welcome to what would be a scintillating lecture, a scintillating engagement with an artist. I'm using the term artist because I began with a quote pertaining to art as such. And whenever there is art, there has to be an artist. And today on our podium, we have an artist who paints with the help of his pen. He has penned down captivating literary pieces, enticing short story, and also mesmerizing other enticing novels, which have, in a way, paved the attention of not only localized leaders but also readers at the global level. Today, on our IFEST podium, we have the emerging writer from the Northeast, Aruni Kashyap. I, on behalf of IFEST, extend my heartiest welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, Abhilash. It's a pleasure to meet you, and it's wonderful to talk to you. And I'm glad to know that there's a All India Students Organization of English students. I did not know that, but congratulations on being one of the leading members of this organization. And it's an absolute pleasure to talk to Cotton College, where my mother used to work, where my
Yes.
father also studied. So I have a very special relationship with Cotton College. I have grown up walking around in those corridors. I was very much part of my mother's life, and my father used to always go to Cotton College. So I'm very excited. I know Cotton College nook and corners from N building to Assamese department to
Feels so
Kolkata.
great, sir.
Yeah, so I know it very well.
Absolutely, sir. And so the then Cotton College has also grown now. It has, in a way, appeared to be a university now. It's a Cotton University now, and it was earlier Cotton College State University. Now it has emerged to be something which is of high repute. It is Cotton University now. So you have such good memories that we all would love to hear in the coming 40 or 45 minutes or an hour time, which I'm sure we all would absolutely enjoy.
It it was always a very reputed college, of course. So Cotton University has given it a lot of intellectual and academic freedom, no doubt about
Absolutely.
it. I remember when I was in high school, my mother used to talk about debate competitions in Cotton College, and then she used to say that today's debate was about whether Cotton should become a university or remain a college. So the students of Cotton College used to debate constantly. Then in term papers, they used to write essays. Cotton College বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় হলে সুবিধা হব নে অসুবিধা হব, pros and cons. They used to write in English department, in Assamese departments, and one of the perspectives that I really used to sort of stay with me was that a lot of economically underprivileged students, they used to say that Cotton যদি বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় হয়, we are worried that the fees will hike up, and I remember Cotton College fees were very cheap. Like for us, it was very cheap, but for economically underprivileged students, it was just reasonable. Sometimes not even that they could afford it. But
True.
anyway, so I don't want to digress it too much. I will let you lead. But it's very pleasure to meet you.
Absolutely, sir. Same here. It's been a long cherished dream, which I am releasing at the moment, sir. Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Before we get started properly, I would love to, in a way, our audience would love to listen from you some pleasurable memories which you have abroad. As an Assamese living outside your native land, how do you feel? How do you cope with all the struggles? And how do you, in a way, acclimatize to all sorts of various kinds of difficulties which you must have overcome by now? And then you have, in a way, appeared to be someone who is not in a way appearing to be digressing from your own identity, but they're writing something catering to both the sides, the US people and the native people. What are your pleasurable memories as such, sir?
There are many pleasurable memories. My first thing was that I grew up visiting the libraries of All India Radio campus, where my father used to work, and the libraries of Cotton College, where my mother was a professor in the Ahomia department. And I used to also go to the district library and Vishnu Rimala Puthibharal in Guwahati. And that's because that my parents could not keep up with my reading habit. I used to read so much that they couldn't keep up. They used to spend already thousands of rupees in buying me books. So they said that we're done. Our budget for this month is over. I'm not buying you any books. And people who like to read books, they go to libraries. So I got all these memberships. And Cotton College Library was the old library. In fact, you must be seeing the new library was one of the libraries that I used to go regularly. And then my mother used to sort of guide me, and I used to borrow books. But what I was really also used to pain me was that, especially the district library, the public libraries in Assam, in Guwahati, were very poorly stocked. The books were misplaced, and it was very hard to get a membership. It was so hard to get a membership that sometimes I used to spend an entire day reading a full novel in district library because I couldn't borrow the book. So I thought, okay, let me just sit here and read it. And I used to finish it off and come back home in the bus. It was their tokka from Kasari to, Sanmari in bus during those days. So I used to pay that money and come, and I was so hungry for reading. But when I first came to the US, my most astonishing and pleasurable experience was that I was a graduate assistant, which means that you teach a course or you assist a professor. And I think most people don't know that the PhDs or postgraduate studies in the US in research intensive universities are fully funded most of the time, even in English. So I was teaching a course in English to undergraduates, and that used to give me some stipend, and that used to take care of my expenses in Minnesota. And then because I was teaching, they used to also do that, tuition fees. They used to waive it. So I muraku kharas nasil, so I didn't have any expenses. I had to make a budget within that, but I did not know that
You were
because I was.
lucky enough, sir.
I don't think so. I think I was very driven. I'm more than lucky. I was
True.
very driven, and this is something that is very. I can talk about this very much later. There is no awareness in Assam. That's why people actually don't apply for these things. But I can talk about it later. But I will say that when I got my iCard and I went to borrow a book, I got 10 books, and I realized that, oh my God, I borrow so many books at a time. So I went to the library, and I said, I'm really sorry, how many books I can borrow. She said, oh, if you're a student, like just 4 or 5 or something like that. So I am a student. So I gave her the card, library card, and she said, no, you can borrow more books. I said, how many? She said, as many as you want. And I said, I didn't understand. I said, what do you mean? And she said, no, you can borrow up to 200 books at a time,
Wow.
and you can keep it for 6 months, and use it. And they had multiple copies of some books, and there were, I think, more than 1 million books in the library. Library was multi-storied, and I remember that during my postgraduate time in Minnesota, I was so hungry that to for books. I used to hunt Daryaganj in Delhi to books to read novels, and I thought now everything is here. And I used to stay in the library and read till 2 a.m. And I'm not saying this in a, from a any kind of prescriptive or moral sense. I was really hungry to read, and that was one of my most pleasurable experience. The second pleasurable experience about coming to the US was that the skies are astonishingly blue here, and you can see clouds of all shapes and sizes. I did not see that in Delhi. I could see that partly in Guwahati, but I have never seen such blue skies. So blue, like you'd feel like it's sapphire,
Wow.
so blue. Akashirang, akashinila, যিটো মানুহে
Right.
কয়.
Right. Feels so great, sir. You have been a proper witness to the serene beauty of nature, which is generally associated with. আৰু ছাৰ কি ভাল লাগে জানেনে আপুনি যেতিয়া পইচা পাতি একো নাছিলে বাট দেন ইউ ষ্ট্ৰাগলড হাৰ্ড ইউ ষ্ট্ৰাইভ হাৰ্ড আৰু সেই সময়ৰ পৰা ষ্টাইপেণ্ড পোৱাৰ পৰা সেই ষ্টেটৰ পৰা আজি আপুনি নিজকে নিজে এজন এষ্টাব্লিছ ৰাইটাৰ হিচাপে প্ৰতিষ্ঠা কৰাৰ যিটো জাৰ্ণি ইট হেজ বিন ওৱান অফ এ ট্ৰেনজিশ্যন এণ্ড অলছ' চাম কাইণ্ড অফ মেমৰি ফৰ আদাৰ্ছ কাৰণ এতিয়া আমি ধৰক য়ং জেনেৰেশ্যনটোৱে আপোনাক আমি চাওঁ উই টেক ইউ টু বি এন ইনস্পিৰেশ্যন এণ্ড দেন you have been an inspiration for numerous others.
Thank you. That's very nice to know that. I'm very very deeply moved to hear that. When I was there in Minnesota, it was so hard to actually make do with the little money that they used to give me. It was enough, but it was hard. So I used to go to Walmart, which was the cheap, which was the cheapest grocery store, and I used to decide aji apple kinim ne kol kinim, because if you buy bananas, it's going to get bad in 3 4 days. The bananas ripen very quickly.
Hmm.
So I used to buy apples, and I used to eat apples all the time because apples used to stay good in the fridge for 2 3 to 4 weeks, and that's what I bought. And when I used to get bored, I used to buy green apples. Now, and then mostly, like, you live on noodles, you live on like cheap food, you buy lots of rice, and you buy lots of eggs. Every meal is egg and rice. And I did not go to a rich private university, so they didn't give me a huge stipend that
Hmm.
possibly is possible. That is possible if you go to a rich private university to do your PhD or graduate studies. So yes, it was worth it. But I feel that, if I had some guidance, then maybe I would have been able to, probably slightly better. I would have been able to do. I did it all myself by googling and googling and googling. And there Google was not enough at that point of time. But still, I'm happy that I had that experience that became the crux of my Assamese short stories, and eventually the novel Noikonetia Duroit, my experiences in Minnesota, that eventually became the mainstay of that. Of the novel was a result of the experiences that I had in Minnesota as a grad student. So I'm grateful I had that experience, because I think I was meant to write that book. So thank you so much. If it inspires someone, I'm happy.
Absolutely, sir. Not only me, but also a lot many others who have been inspired by you. আৰু sir, ইমান ধুনীয়া এটা success story আমি যেতিয়া শুনিবলৈ পাওঁ, we inevitably tend to fall in line with the same place. ইমান এটা ভাল লাগি যায় যে, oh my God, someone from our land, someone from our own place has in a way moved out from his town, from his comfort zone, so to say, and has established himself. We can start go on and on and on and on this, and it feels absolutely great. Okay, so then moving ahead, we can say that after reading your poetry collection, there is no good time for bad news. It has been a mesmerizing collection. For me, at a personal level, it has been something of a thunderous kind. And so whenever I read this, I go to the book quite often. And whenever I read this, I find a sense of immediacy in it. Okay, there is that sense of urge, that sense of immediacy which compels one, which binds us together. Do you see the collection to be the voice of repressed Assam? Can we then call it to be the post colonial state of repressed Assam?
I think there are different ways of looking at a book of art, a book of poems. There are different ways of looking at art. So if somebody wants to call it, I wouldn't have a problem with it. And I think that, in some ways, Assam's voice have been silenced and repressed by the post-colonial Indian state, and
Absolutely.
and many other repressive regimes as well. And so I think writing anything about the state, critiquing the state, definitely is a way of giving voice to that repressed voice. But again, I also feel that what I have done is this poetry collection is only a trickle, and other people have to write about their experiences. Only then the whole picture will be complete. So I hope that other people write about their experiences, because I don't want my book to be the only book out there. I want other books to be there so that I can learn from them. Otherwise, otherwise people are going to misconstrue that this is the only story of Assam. I don't have control over it, but I think there are many stories that are untold. There are many stories that are told but needs focus.
Absolutely, sir. With the emergence of reading response theory, we have umpteen number of responses going around. But then we always have that sort of stability, that sort of benchmark as to how a text has to be read. Because, okay, fine, we can have a lot of interpretations, no doubt about that. But we cannot have something which will beat around the bush. There has to be something concrete, there has to be something specific as such. And there is no good time for bad news. The title seems an intriguing one. That's something which will draw the attention. Whenever I use the word immediacy, I really focus on that sense of tagline, sir, because there is no good time for bad news. It's obvious. It's so very commonplace, but yet so intriguing.
Yeah, actually, I did not name the poetry collection that way. There are many other names. At first, I thought the holidaying prime minister. because the first
Okay.
poem is about a prime minister who goes on a
Primates.
holiday when
Yeah.
there's an invasion in Assam of the Chinese, or the Indo-Pak War, as they say. Then I thought that I would name it An Invitation to Murder, which is another poem in the collection.
Hmm.
But then I really wanted to write the poem that is a title poem, which is about a mother who goes to the morgue every year and for 30 years to identify dead bodies because her son is missing, and has joined the insurgency organization. So that story had stayed with me for a very, very long time, and it is a story I heard actually from multiple people. Not just, it didn't happen to just one woman or one family. It happened to many people who were regularly summoned during those days to go and identify dead bodies or corpses because someone from their family had joined the organization, insurgents organization. So as a result, the family would be asked to go and identify, possibly because they needed closure as well, and it was a duty of the police to let them come and identify. So that story had stayed with me so long, and I wanted to write a poem, and I tried and failed and tried and failed. um, Eventually that poem I wrote actually before I sent the book to the press. So it was a poem that I added much later, in fact. So and called it. Then I thought that this is probably the title for the poem, and I liked it. Yeah.
It is absolutely intriguing, sir. And I also remember you coming up with two cover pages, one with a lighter shade, one with a darker one,
Yes.
and you asked the sort of as to how to go about it, which one to choose from, and both the titles had that atmosphere in them, that dark, airy sense of gloomy sense of thing, which will in a way draw the attention of the readers. That
Yeah.
white and the black background.
Yeah, but it's a photograph. Actually, it's a very benign photograph, which has been given all the sinister undertones because of the collection.
Absolutely,
It's
absolutely,
a
sir.
photograph from Titliguri village where I come from, and while one day while I was walking down the road, I saw it was winter, and I saw people burning a bunch of care, a straw, straw on the side of the road. So when you burn damp straw, it emits a kind of very thick water vapor mixture of smoke that is mixed with water vapor. So the smoke is white and very thick, and that's I thought it was a very interesting photograph. It looked like the photograph looks like there's a car wreck or some accident has happened or somebody has bombed the place, but actually it is just a very benign everyday thing,
Absolutely,
like
yes.
a heap of straw which is burning slowly.
Sounds so great and feels too great to listen to all these stories, because all these small tales have, in a way, they have been immersed and repressed, and they have not been undercovered, and they have not been unmasked. And the process of unraveling is always a fine art, which not many people possess actually. Okay, so then enough of poetry now. We'll move ahead to the novels. Set in your Hatimura village of Mayang area, your debut novel, The House with a Thousand Stories. Whenever I read the book, I find a sense of aesthetic pleasure. Okay, fine, there are a lot of so-called elements which are pertaining to the field of insurgency as such, but then there is an aesthetic pleasure which finds proper expression in the mouth of your narrator, Pablo. Pablo has been phenomenal. He has done a wonderful job in terms of getting portrait to the real intention of the author, that is you. And how do you sort of manage to find out that aesthetic sense amidst the gloom and doom of insurgency in the novel?
That's a really important point you're making, Abhilash, and I think that's truly pertinent in understanding work of art. What I wanted is that there is also a tinge of humor in Pablo's narration.
Yes, sir.
He's satirical. He's satirical. Sometimes he's mocking. Um, Sometimes he's sad, and that's because I wanted him to have the distance. If you actually think about the book, Pablo is narrating these events from 2008, much later when he is already
Hmm.
in Delhi,
True, sir.
because he starts the novel by saying in 2002, which means he's not in 2002, he's in some other time.
Other places,
So
yeah.
when he has matured as a narrator, as a person, and as a human being, and he's recollecting these experiences, and that's why the novel is starts that way. and that's why Pablo has the perspective to be able to comment on the events. If he was in the middle of it as a young 17-year-old Pablo, he won't be able to comment on those
True, sir.
events
True.
as well as possible. So yeah, I think it is a duty of any author to find beauty. So I was trying to find unity, beauty, and hope and redemption in that book, despite all the horrible things that was happening during that time. And it is true of life. Hatimura village is my grandmother's village, and
Okay.
I have spent a lot of time in the late 1990s living there when secret killings were happening. I grew up sort of steeped in short stories about how people were killed, how people were tortured, how people survive. But in the middle of all of that, what was beautiful was that people constantly sort of did what they would usually do in life, like fall in love, elope, have extramarital affairs, dance bihu, go for festivals, and so on. So it was not that, that because of the violence, people's lives were completely flattened. People continued to be very passionate consumers of their own life, and continue to celebrate even little joys. And it was easy for me to capture that because I have lived that life. So but at the same time, I know, as a literary scholar, as a writer who is aware of tradition, and who is aware writer, as a self-conscious writer, I do know that that is what I was trying to do when I was writing the novel, as an MA student in Delhi University. And I wanted to find hope, I wanted to find redemption, and I wanted to also find beauty, and in the middle of so much chaos and violence.
And you have absolutely found beauty, sir, because there is a sense of aesthetic pleasure which the readers will surely find it. But then the aestheticism of the text lies between the lines. And reading between the lines is really important because Pablo, we all know how young he is, 17 years old. And to be speaking such things which he has spoken in the text at such a young age needs some kind of maturity. And as you rightly said, it would not have been possible had he been portrayed straight away. So moving back in time was really important, was really, really, really pertaining to the main focal aspect of the text, actually.
Thank you so much for reading it so closely.
It was a pleasure reading, sir. And sir, according to the Huffington Post, your his father's disease, that collection is something which the characters negotiate home, which the characters are desperately negotiating home. And whenever we read that, we find that okay, there are a lot many things which go into the making of the text, but then there is one binding element which I personally found, and that was stereotype.
Hmm.
That was stereotype in the subtle, nuanced sense. Okay, how do you portray, or how do you sort of, in a way, take into account of the repressed truths of marginalized Assamese societies?
I think as a writer, we always have a lot of curiosity about what is repressed, what we shouldn't talk about, and that's why we are writers. It's an innate thing, actually. And what is being repressed also makes for good stories. There is
Absolutely.
curiosity. If something is repressed, there is curiosity. So as a writer, I'm drawn to anything that is forbidden, anything that is repressed, anything that I shouldn't speak about. If somebody says, don't speak about this to anybody else, I would like to speak about it to everybody. you know that's a human nature also, isn't it? If somebody says we shouldn't talk about this, then I would like to talk about it, because maybe others also, but my desire probably as a writer is so much more stronger that I end up talking about it.
কিবা
So
এটা নক'ব গ'লে ছাৰ বেছিকৈ ক'বলৈ মন যায়।
absolutely, Kobo Monzai. So I think that is what drives me towards towards this, to find out what is not spoken. And also, what we have to really remember one thing, that our societies always have skeletons, and those skeletons needs to be brought out into the open, so that the society can progress by sort of by discussing those things openly. So sexuality, or black magic, or sorcery, or state violence, anything, or violence on women, for example, anything. All of these topics have to be discussed openly, debated openly, for a society to actually create justice for itself and its citizens.
Very true, sir. And I think you have created the right sort of lineage, if I can call that, in order to get portrayed, because our society as such needs some kind of visibility, because till now we have not been made visible. To be
Mhm.
very frank, we have not been made visible, and people like you, writers like you, authors like you, should always be the forerunners in terms of making us known to the global world, to the global public. Because Assamese societies, apart from the violence, apart from the issues related to insurgency and all the turmoil surrounding it, there are a lot many aesthetic nuances as well, which are which are in a way pertaining to be the linchpin of the Assamese societies, if we can call so, because we have not yet been exposed, we have not yet been sort of unmasked, and those phenomena at times can really be disturbing as an Assamese, as someone who really wants to be portrayed in the larger whole, in the larger global around world, and this is something which we need to look at in times to come, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm glad you feel that way. Though I would say that, I'm honestly driven by the sense of storytelling. Anything that is interesting to me, I want to tell it in the form of a short story, because I'm not a musician, neither I'm a painter. So my way of expressing is a story. Either it's a short story or a novel. I used to be sort of driven by this idea of showcasing what is Northeast, what is Assam, to the world outside Assam, that may be India or the rest of the world. But I don't feel that anymore, honestly. One of the reasons is that, I don't think that one of the reasons that I don't feel like anymore, because I think that makes me because I think that makes me a sort of a people expect me to speak in a certain way if I'm driven by that idea. And I want to talk about the bad things in Assam as well. I want to talk about the good things in Assam as well. I want to talk about the ignored things in Assam as well. And in my work, I'm a very staunch critique of Assamese nationalism, Assamese patriarchy, and all the other terrible things that are in our society, like all other societies. And people read my English work a lot, so they don't know that I have addressed not they people who don't read Assamese don't know that I have addressed these things in my Assamese literature, Assamese short stories, novellas, and novels. I write because I want a better society, but at the same time, I'm getting more and more interested in writing what I enjoy writing, and that can be very critical story about the society that I come from. I have started writing a lot also about the U.S. because I live here now. So it looks like I'm interested in writing about the places that I call home or I make home. So it is. My writing hopefully will not be limited only to Assam or Guwahati or Delhi, but will also expand to Minnesota or New York or Georgia. And I want to write about all the places that I have lived. I want to write about the different historical periods that interest me. So I'm a storyteller. Any good story will always attract me, and because I'm a certain kind of citizen who is worried about justice and human rights and storytelling and the work of art in raising consciousness about injustice. Maybe I will write in a certain way, but eventually I'm honestly a storyteller. I really really like writing stories, telling stories, and and supporting people who write stories. So in a way, actually, it is one job. I wake up in the morning, I write, I come to college in my office like this. There are books behind me that I take to my classrooms and teach. And I tell my students to read books and teach them how to read books. And I teach them how to write about books in the form of academic essays. Then I go to another class and teach them how to write short stories, and we workshop short stories. And I come back and meet other writers in the department. We go out for coffee and talk about writing. So it's one job. I just talk about books and write books and think about books.
You know what, sir? Listening to you makes me feel like I'm listening to a very melodious string of chords, being played beside me, and I'm just enjoying the linear flow as to how you pertain the way of. It's amazing, sir. And one thing which I really like you pointed out is the portrayal of Assam without being biased, the good things and the bad things, because there are many books. I will not mention the writers because there are many books in Assamese literature or Assamese English writers for that matter. We find the portrayal of the things which make the Assamese society as such without really being focused on the negative aspect, on the negative issues. And those ideas, I feel that they also need some kind of portrayal as well. And what you rightly said is something that without being biased, we can do that in a precise manner. And so, in the same line, what I would also like to ask you is that you have really been vocal in your books, in your texts regarding the Assamese society. You have tried your best to portray it in the manner you feel like that it needs to be portrayed. Okay, and then I also feel at the same time that our Assamese societies have in a way moved ahead without really getting portrayed in the mainstream academy of the present world. Isn't it a sad story then?
Yeah, it is, but at the same time, those are not the reasons you write, actually. I think you write because, see, when I started writing when I was 9 years old. I started writing seriously when I was 15 or 16 because that's the only way I felt happy. And that's the only way I felt I could make sense of the world. I just loved writing. So when I became a literary scholar in college, in the sense I was trained to be a literary scholar, like you were trained probably as to write literary papers and so on. I started thinking about my writing in a different way. But over the years, what I have realized is that I really like to write stories, and that's all I care about. you know and we must write true stories. And when you write true stories, it's not going to be a very flattering depiction of whatever you write always. you know and That's it. As long as you are finding truth, truth is beautiful. you know Truth is beautiful, truth is powerful, has the power to change everything. So I'm interested in truth. But I'm not interested in the kind of truth that you can prove in the court. I'm interested in the kind of truth that is found in art, in stories, in literature, in parables, in fables, in the stories that our grandmothers told us. So that there is truth there about society, about a people, about history, about politics, about love, about sex, about everything. That truth I'm interested in. I'm not interested in the empirical truth that you can prove in a court. I'm not interested in the truth that social media demands from you. I'm interested in literary truth, and that means that I write about anything at the service of this job, which is both good and bad, and ignored things. Yeah. And yes, you are right. In academia or in generally, in Indian literature, literature from Northeast, literature from Assam has been ignored, and I think we should talk about it. But at the same time, we shouldn't care about it too much as well. In you know, I'm now here, so I'm translating writers from Assam and publishing them in U.S. journals. Now, people in Delhi are saying, "Why are you not sending it to us? Please send it to us. We will also publish these writers in our presses." And I'm like, "You never cared. That's why I'm publishing it somewhere else."
Absolutely.
When I was, so you have to find your own way of making yourself heard. So I'm glad that I'm here, and I'm glad that I have been able to do what I'm doing, and I will do. But those are anxieties. Oh, among Bhalnapa, they don't care about us. Those are anxieties that shouldn't bother us. We should just do the damn work, and do good job so that everybody takes notice. And even if they don't take notice, it doesn't matter. You had the satisfaction of doing it, and it will change. Something will change. Something will change. Something will happen. Work of art is never going to be a waste.
Sir, John Keatse কৈছিলে a thing of beauty is a joy forever. এই একেটা বস্তু আমি আপোনাৰ ক্ষেত্ৰতে ক'ব পাৰোঁ. Whenever we read your books, we feel like delving deep as closely as possible. And that is what makes your book really stand out, because that subtle nuance which I am talking about, that aesthetic sense. আৰু sir, আপুনি এটা কথা বহুত ভালকে এতিয়া ক'লে যে the value of a particular thing gets noticed once it is gone, only once it is gone. সেইটো আপুনি এতিয়া দিল্লীৰ যিটো কথা ক'লে যে আপোনাক তেওঁলোকে খুজিছে but earlier they never cared for it.
আগতে বা অসমীয়া কিতাপ প্ৰকাশ কৰিবলৈ মানুহক কৈ থাকো, তেওঁলোকে কি এৱাৰ্ড পাইছে লেখকজনে, কোন হয়, নেশ্যনেল ৰেপুটেশ্যন কি, এইবিলাক সোধে। কিন্তু যেতিয়া মোৰ ইয়াতে গল্প দুই এটা ওলাই ইয়াতে বাহিৰৰ আলোচনীত, সন্মানীয় আলোচনীত, বাহিৰৰ কাৰণে সন্মানীয় নহয়, বিকজ দে আৰ সন্মানীয়, দ্যাটছ ৱাই দে আৰ সন্মানীয়, then people say, like, oh, আমাকো দিয়া, we'll also publish. Then I said, okay, but I was asking you long ago, 10 years ago, you know. So that's why I'm saying you should just do the work, and not create, not think about the noise.
সেইটোৱে ছাৰ, এতিয়া ধৰক আপোনাৰ কিতাপ বহুত ওলালে কাৰণে তেওঁলোকে এতিয়া গম পাইছে, now they are in a way hankering after your works.
Yeah, মোৰ কবিতা সংকলনখন, my
হয়।
poetry collection, I sent it to quite a few publishers in India, and everybody say we don't publish poetry. I want and because poetry has no money, but now it is published in the US. It has got such good reviews. Now people are saying, why didn't you send it to us? I said, I sent it to you. You said you don't want to. I have emails. I don't delete emails. So it's okay. It's not like a bitter thing. I do understand that poetry doesn't sell, but there's a whole different debate about that. But at the same time, what I'm trying to say is that if you just have to do the work.
You cannot sell art, as simple as that.
Yeah, I do know the publishers, what publishers are coming from. People don't buy poetry, Poetry is expensive. People don't buy poetry,
By poetry,
So
yeah.
that's what people are ready to go and eat in a cafe and spend 500 rupees, but not buy a book. They are happy to sit in CCD and spend that money. I don't know if CCD exists anymore, but they do, right? Yeah. So or McDonald's or anywhere, but we don't buy a book that will stay with us for the rest of our life. That is something we don't do.
But then, sir, they also need to understand the fact that you cannot just bring in money in everything you do. There has to be some other sense of realization as well. But
Yes,
sadly,
I do think
people don't understand that.
Yeah, I do think publishers have an ethical responsibility to publish books that are not going to be selling like hotcakes. But what can we do? We are up against that space. The same thing we hear from Ahomia publishers who keep on saying that Golpa Hongkolans don't send us Golpa Hongkolan, write a novel. So it's part and parcel of the whole problem. We cannot always approach it from a place of indignation. I'm just saying that these are problems with the profession.
True, sir. Yeah, we just need to be showing some kind of soft corners to them because they, at the end of the day, want some kind of money. That's it. So আপুনি অসমীয়া কথা ক'লে, okay, then মই আপোনাক অসমীয়াখনৰ কথাই কওঁ, নৈখন এতিয়া দূৰৈত. That sensation, that Assamese sensation, আপুনি Adamui or Razibok, you have in a way immortalized them. They have been immortalized in your voices.
I don't know, really? Have I?
You surely have, sir, because the two characters, they're quite different, no doubt. But then they have their own sense of seeing the world. And when I use the phrase seeing the world, I specifically mean Razib. Because Razib, আমি যে নভেলখন পঢ়ো, আমি দেখো যে তেওঁ হিষ্ট্ৰী পঢ়ি আছে আমেৰিকাত গৈ পেলাই. He is a student who is in a way into history and is studying the intricacies of history. But then in the process of studying history, he has also been silently visualizing the Assam which he sees in America. Can we then say that the book sort of negotiates between the peaceful Assam and the issues associated with casteism, the caste-related issues, which the novel silently talks about? We don't find any glaring representation of its kind, but then if we read between the lines, which I'm stressing on, we can find subtle nuances of casteism as well. How do you sort of amalgamate them?
That's true. Actually, Rajiv comes from a very politically and socially aware background, but he's very young. We have to remember that he's only 25 years old, 26 years old,
Sir.
maybe younger. I don't really know how young he is, but as young as an MA student. So how old an MA
23,
student?
24 years old. Yeah.
23, 24 years old. So his political views have not formed that much. But at the same time, he's bothered by the fact that Assam has such a rich society, but people are always fighting between each other, and politics have ruined it. And he sees that that United States, despite its violent history, there is the conversation about living together as a multilingual or a multi-ethnic society is is a very predominant conversation in a country like United States. Now, obviously, we cannot transplant U.S. ideas of multiculturalism and plant it in Assam or Northeast or any other heterogeneous space. But at the same time, but a soul of those ideas of being able to live together, of being tolerant of each other, of respecting and celebrating the diversity, those things could be borrowed. And that's what Rajiv is constantly thinking about. He may be wrong, but he is constantly not only critiquing caste in Assam, he's also critiquing Assamese nationalism,
Yes, yes.
that actually ends up committing violence against minorities in Assam, people of Bengal origin in Assam, or Bengal origin Muslim communities in Assam, or even the tribals, the Janajatiya people in Assam. He's bothered by that, and American literature is giving him an American literature and American society, and conversations about multiculturalism and racial equality is giving him some kind of hope, and that's why he constantly thinks about Assam. But he may be completely wrong, but he's at least thinking about living together and moving forward. And I
But sir,
think that,
the girl character is completely different. Adamu is completely different.
yeah, Adayomi is very different. She's very bitter. She has faced so much. She has seen so much in life.
He's a staunch critic, actually.
Yeah, she's a very strong, staunch critique of the American society because she has grown up in America, completely racialized in the United States. And so she's very angry and bitter, but she's also someone who has a lot of humor in her and hope in her because she loves poems. She's a fan of good literature, good writing, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, Adayomi has seen America much deeper than Rajiv, so she has a much deeper, much angrier critique about American racism in her from we hear it from her constantly, and she's at times unforgiving. Rajiv wants to reconcile, and that creates a very interesting tension between the two characters.
Absolutely, yes, sir. We find the tug of war, sort of, but then that war is that necessary thread, actually, that binds the entire novel together. Because Rajib, all throughout the text, he has been, in a way, correlating the Assamese society through his eyes as to how he sees the American society. কাৰণ যেতিয়াই ৰাজীৱে দেখা পায় এইটো এইটো মোৰ তাত থাকিব লাগিছিল বা এইটো মোৰ তাত থাকিলে কেনেকুৱা হ'ব,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of correlation, that sort of realization as a M student is something which we find in your every novel. There is the central character who tends to sort of move around the world, but then that moving, that act of demographic transition, in a way brings in the mental realization as well.
Yeah, yeah. He's always thinking, why can't people be tolerant of each other? Why can't people live together? Why can't we have an Assam that speaks in many languages? That'll be so nice,
That
isn't it?
is so nice.
Yeah. So those are the things that he keeps thinking about.
Kaziala give us sadness.
No, but the truth is that Assam does speak in many languages, and that's the
Absolutely.
beauty of Assam. You go to some place, somebody is speaking missing language. In our village, we speak in Bengali, we speak in Karbi. Most of my relatives know Karbi. Why can't we just acknowledge it? It is as it is. Nobody's saying that that this is the only language one should speak. Assam does speak in many languages,
Absolutely,
and
yes,
that
sir.
is our wealth. That makes us different from other states in the rest of India. Assam does speak in many languages. Why can't we celebrate that? There is literature from Barak Valley written in Bengali. There is literature from Bodoland. There's a special
Hmm.
issue in Prakach magazine on Bodo literature, which is translated to Assamia in November 2021. I'm glad that people are doing that, but that those things need to be celebrated. And we need to own our wealth instead of trying to sort of constantly fight amongst ourselves and try to impose one monolithic idea about Assam.
Absolutely, sir. Instead of taking into account of those petty matters, why can't we celebrate it? Because there
Yeah,
is racial diversity, no doubt. Even language
yeah.
diversity needs to be embraced as well. And once we
There
start
is,
doing it, we'll realize how beautiful, how serene, and how mesmerizing the Assamese society is in general.
yeah. There is ethnic diversity and there is linguistic diversity. So we must celebrate that. When I go to different kinds of events here, যেতিয়া মোৰ মন যায়, with the weather permits, I always wear an arnai, or a Karbi muffler or a Rabha muffler. If we can do that, why can't we? I mean, I do. Many
Yes, sir.
people.
You have a lot of pictures on Facebook as well wearing those dress.
Yeah, so I think I feel so proud that we have so much diversity in Assam, and there's so little I can do, but people, I live here now, but people in Assam has to do the work. Yeah.
Very true, sir. And to be very honest, you have already done a lot. And I'm really hopeful that I'll be reading many, many, many works of yours in the days to come. And I'm absolutely sure of that.
Hopefully, I hope everything will happen accordingly.
It will surely happen, sir. So, whenever we read your books, we find that you generally address the structured layers of life, of individual lives. And you have been someone who has visited many places, who has been the resident of numerous places, starting from your village, Tehsildar, to various other places in Assam, New Delhi, Minnesota, New York, now Georgia. How do you, in a way, sort of maintain the balance in terms of catering to the needs of the US readers, at the same time maintaining your Assamese identity? Because at the end of the day, you are someone who is living in the US, but then you have your heart and soul pertaining to the Assamese society.
I think I don't think I cater to any specific readership. I think I cater to people who are interested in reading global literature, and those people are used to eclectic books, so they do the extra mile. I read a lot of African writers, and they bring their own storytelling traditions, their cultural details into the novels and short stories that they write. So I don't understand these cultures, but at the same time, I get it when I read it. So I think any good reader will do the hard work, and I write my books for those readers who is ready to do the hard work to understand where I come from and understand what I'm writing about. There are even sometimes Bengali books, which is one of the culture that is very close to our culture. I was very confused. What is Shakha? What is Shakha Shindur? When I was reading a lot of Bengali 19th century novels, I didn't understand. Then I went up. There was a neighbor in our house, my friend's mother, and I said, "Auntie, tell me what is it all about?" And she is from Calcutta, but she was living in Guwahati for a long time. So explain it. So that's what books are for, to build community. You take a book, you don't understand something, ask someone who understands. Nowadays, you have Google Auntie.
Google and it does all the work for us.
Yeah. So I think reading a book is is also an exercise in exploration about things that you don't understand. I mean, who understood George Eliot's books and all the food and culture and history she referred to when I was in Assam? We were reading Dickens, we were reading Shakespeare, set in medieval 19th century, medieval early modern England.
19th century.
Yeah, right. So you understood it, right? Because you tried to understand it. So I don't think catering the readership or catering the books for any specific readership is ever helpful to any author. That would actually make them really, really boring. Yeah.
Hi. Absolutely true, sir. Yeah, because we find a lot of angles in it. আপুনি যদি বিচাৰে বহুত বস্তুৱে উলিয়াব পাৰিব, বহুত বস্তুৱে বিচাৰিব পাৰিব, but then you need to find one sort of, as such, one demarcatory line. Because reading is, after all, as you rightly said, it's an exercise. It's exploring the unexplored. And whenever we read something, irrespective of the inherent idea of the author or the narrator, we get a literary delight. And that is what reading is all about. আমি যেতিয়া কিবা এখন পঢ়ো, we get to know a lot of things which were unknown to us earlier on.
Yes. The reader brings a lot to the book as well as the writer. So the reader and the writer collaborate in order to create meaning. And every reader brings something new to the book.
Absolutely, sir. Sir, আপোনাৰ কথাখিনি Stanley Fish শুনি বৰ ভাল পাব.
Oh,
because
really?
because he has developed that interpreted communicatives.
Okay, okay. I was really happy you started with a quote from Alice Walker. Alice Walker's hometown, actually is 1 hour away where she was born from where I live. She's from
Oh,
Georgia. Yeah.
okay, that's nice. And so she was really right, because he said, if art doesn't make us better, what it is on the art for? She has summed up the purpose of art in just one single line. And that quote really attracts me every time because it not only shows how art can be a powerful medium, but also at the same time, it proves that art and artist, they exist in a simultaneous manner.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so enough of novels then. A particular reader who has not done his thorough research, or a reader who has not, in a way, delved deep into your works, is not aware of your novellas. I can proudly say that because I have done my research and I have read your books. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And sir, those novellas are quite interesting. Be it Homirioner Pasat, be it Harakanta Bazar, Mantra Puthibur, those texts are quite different. Are quite different in the sense they don't deal with insurgency, they don't deal with the difficult times of Assam, they don't deal with any kind of discrimination. But then, if we read Horakanta particularly, we find some elements of magic realism, if I am not wrong. Could you please let our viewers know the gist of the two texts?
Thank you so much, first of all, for reading Harakanta Bejar Mantra Puthibu, which is a novella of mine in Ahomia. Uh, actually, there is insurgency in Harakanta Bejar Mantra Puthibu because there's a scene where the army come in and they don't touch the bark manuscripts. But the
True.
rest of the house is
Yeah.
is kind of this in this array. There is magic realism, but it's not deliberate in the sense that I have roots in Mayong. Like, we talk about magic, people being turned into sheep all the time. Now that's magic realism, right? So,
True.
my grandmother used to say, "Oh, oh, you have a stomach upset. Come, I will cure it." I mean, how would you cure it? Oh no, I have this. So she used to collect all her hair, and then she used to make a big bun out of that, and then she used to take a little bit of hair out of it, and she used to make a big bun out of it and kind of like adorn it with pearls and everything, fake pearls, of course. But then she used to take a little bit out of it and take some kind of mustard oil and chant a spell and rub it around the navel, and within minutes your stomach ache used to be gone. So this is magic realism, like, is this magic? Is it not magic? None of this matter. Harakanta Bejar Mentraputibur is actually about one of my uncles who was actually a sorcerer, who was a healing chant practitioner. And he actually had bark manuscripts after he died. The family had to go through a lot of hardships, and one of the things that they constantly complained about was the fact that they had scary dreams. And this is not something that I developed much in the novella. They had scary dreams, but the whole family would have the same dream. And it was very interesting. So I thought this was really interesting. I must write something about it. Now, if this is Marquesian or Isabel Allendean, I don't know, but I'm just saying that this is what happened to my family. This is what happened in our village, and I'm writing about it. Now, I think if it is magic realism, so be it, but this is a reality that I have lived.
And so it is completely opposite to what you portray in Homirioner Pasat, because that is also an enticing text.
Right. Homina Pasad is, I have always been interested about secret lives, and um, so for me, and secret lives being discovered after people have died, it really interests me, that the person who lived was somebody else actually, and their friends and family discover them, and so that was something that drew me to Homina Pasad. I wanted to find Homina Pasad for the viewers is a novella about a mother who actually is mourning her recently
Dead
dead son,
son.
and he had a job in Guwahati, and she sort of comes back to collect his things and finds out that he was dating a woman, and then what happens to the relationship between the mother and the woman is the story, and the one who died is Homiron, he died in a car accident. Yeah, so I'm interested in the secret lives. Homiran was we would never know whether Homiran wanted to tell his mother that he was dating someone who was much older than him. But
Hmm.
I'm interested in how the mother, who is so modern, progressive, to the fact that she's not even doing all this tiloni and all of these rituals, right? She's just there, you know.
She's just
Uh,
there, yeah.
yeah, she's just there. Let me collect all of these things. She would even eat. You know, she's very
But then
normal.
her presence is so vivid, you just cannot escape from her.
Yeah, she's in pain. She's in so much pain, you know, so you can't escape her pain. And then she finds out, you know, and then she speaks like she she becomes so basic, you know, and she's so intelligent, and she's a scholar, she's modern. Suddenly she becomes this basic person who thinks in a very derogatory way about the woman her son was dating. You know, you kind of you know, she uses a bad word, you know, she says that you trapped him, you know, like
Yeah.
why would you trap him, you know?
Hmm.
And she's like, we loved each other, you know. So yeah, and I'm really interested in how, yeah, but you know, the only problem with these novellas is that the puja or the magazine, these magazines that they ask you to write, they don't give you much pages. So I really
Yeah.
wanted to explore the dynamics of the relationship so much more, but I like, and then the editor was like, iman page, this much page, you can't explore. Like, so maybe one day I'll make it into a full length novel. Let me see what happens.
Surely, sir, I would love to read. And not only this, but also many, many, many more as well.
Hopefully, I really hope so. Thank you so much for. I'm really glad that you read those novellas and made an effort to read them. Yeah, they're
Those
hard
were
to find.
quite gripping, sir, quite gripping. It's really interesting. And sir, to cap down the event, I would love to ask you, you come from a family of gifted writers, no doubt about that. Okay. Yeah. So it's a no-brainer to state that writing must have come naturally to you. It is absolutely natural. Okay. And then there must have been some very pleasurable childhood memories and experiences which you had as a child growing up in Assam, which you had in the corridors of Cotton College, as you said. That precisely later on shaped your writer as a shaped your career precisely shaped your career to be the writer which we know today. Could you please share some of those interesting memories, some of those interesting experiences which you had?
The most pleasurable memories that I had um, was the most pleasurable memories that I had was going to Tetiliguri village and spending months and months there. The most pleasurable memories that I had was going to Mayong and spending months and months there. You know, that was my most pleasurable memories. And honestly, when I say months and months, I don't exaggerate it. They used to just like forget about us, my parents. You know, like leave it. They used to drop us there, and not we would not hear about them for 2 months. You know, and I'm talking about long summer holidays, you know. And also, like, my family was not like other middle class families where I had to go to like art school and music school and swimming school. They're like, just do whatever you want. But it is where I saw life, you know. That is where I saw life, death, I saw mourning, I saw happiness, I saw joy, and I also saw that despite poverty, despite violence, despite the unemployment and challenges, people in rural Assam read voraciously. Every household had a library, like a bookshelf. Every household, and if they couldn't afford, they borrowed books from others, and just a basic um, basic bookshelf would have Anuradhar Dekh, it would have Pita Putra by Humana Borgohain, it would
Hmm.
have Pamela Roysam, it would have Bhabadenar Khoikia, all the lots of Pafu series, lots of Bismoy, lot of Rahasya. People read, you know, people didn't have houses that had even asbestos, but houses of my own uncles which had straw roofs, but they had a library, they had a bookshelf. They spent money on books. That is something that I find absolutely fascinating about the rural folk in Assam. And this is where I used to spend my time. I used to read voraciously, you know, and because sometimes, you know, at home you're not allowed to read certain books, you know. So but I used to read there
So,
and with my cousins, you know, who are of all ages. My most wonderful time, if I had the chance, I would, if somebody says that in Mayong you're opening a college, come and teach here, I would probably happily take it and go.
such fond memories you have. And sir, it feels really great, to listen to all those childhood tales, all those childhood narrations as such. They, we all have certain moments which stay with us no matter where we go, no matter how, in a way, how famous or how someone who has known, so someone who has been made known as such. And those tales, precisely, if I am not wrong, have made you the writer you are today. Because Aruni Kashyap today is not the same Aruni Kashyap 10 years earlier.
Yeah. I don't know what you mean by that. Yeah, I have evolved. I think. I think I have evolved a lot, and I hope I have evolved. I would want to evolve. I hope that I'm not static. Yeah. I hope I'm becoming a better writer, better thinker, a more
We all
disciplined
love
person.
your books, sir, no doubt about that.
Thank you so much, Abhilash. It's so heartening to know that you are familiar with my work. It's absolutely lovely.
And sir, just some few lines for our upcoming writers. আমাৰ উঠি অহা নৱপ্ৰজন্মৰ কাৰণে আপুনি কি ক'ব বিচাৰিব sir? Because I'm sure not only me, but also there are lot many writers, lot many young minds who are looking at you, who are looking up to you as to how they go about their business. আপুনি কি ক'ব বিচাৰিব sir?
I would say that you must claim your roots, number one, and that's because that's your power and strength. The number two thing is that if you really want to be a writer, you really have to read, and you have to love reading. That's what's and the 20 years down the line, you would never regret saying, "Hey, pandemic ki koilo iman kitab porilu সময় নষ্ট হল." Nobody's going to say that, right? So, but if you say I watch only Netflix, pandemic khali Netflix se salu iman সময় নষ্ট হল. Now that sounds rings as true. But if you read books during the pandemic, or if you read books, you're never going to regret. So my if you're asking me for a suggestion for anyone who wants to be a writer, I would say being a deep and passionate reader is the most important thing, and writing regularly, is another important thing. It can regularly I might mean 3 days a week, 2 days a week, every day a week, every day of the week.
Just to hone your skills a little bit.
Yes, it is like riyaz, like music. You have to write every day. You have to read every day. That's all.
Sir, it was so engulfing, I was deeply into it. And all I can say is that, sir, you have made my night because it is night 11 p.m. in India now. And you have given me such fond memories, which I will cherish for my entire life. And those memories, not only me, but also our viewers, our readers, our listeners, our writers, they will all enjoy it thoroughly. And I'm pretty sure of that. And so, one primary reason as to why I am happy now is that not because it is you, not because it is me that I'm interviewing you at the moment, but because it is AK who is interviewing under AK. And it just a correlation would just strike my mind just now. And I'm really, really happy for that, sir, because interviewing you, or rather, I should say, talking to you was my long cherished dream. And I'm just glad that I could do that now. And it's been an amazing, amazing journey, I should say, because the last 1 hour, which we spent virtually, though, has been phenomenal, sir. All I can say is that it has been phenomenal.
Thank you, Abhilash. You're very generous with your comments, and I had a wonderful time talking about all of these issues that I really love and I care about. So let's keep the conversation going. Keep in touch.
Sure, sir. Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely,
Thank
sir.
you so much. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks a lot, sir. Same here.
Yeah. Is the recording over? When it is, let me know.
Yes, sir. Fine. You can just
Yeah.
wind it up. Let us call it a day then, sir.
Okay.
Take care,
Yeah.
sir.
Sure.
Bye bye.
ঠিক আছে। যোগাযোগত থাকিব।